Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I'm unboxing the Lenovo ThinkPad X12 Detachable Gen 2. I'll include a link in the description for those of you interested in picking one up, and in full disclosure, this was furnished to me by the manufacturer for review purposes. So what you're about to see is essentially Lenovo's ThinkPad Surface Pro. That's because it's a tablet that is a 2-in-1. It comes with a detachable keyboard as well as a pen for inking, note-taking, whatever you plan on doing with it. But what's unique about the X12 Detachable is that it is more feature-rich than the Surface Pro line. Also, unlike the Surface Pro 11, which is driven by Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chip, here we have a traditional Intel Core Ultra 5. It's the 134U processor. You can get this up to the Ultra 7 if you choose. This particular model has 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM soldered to the board, clocked at 6400 megahertz. The RAM is actually over 7000 to be exact, so really fast RAM on board. We have a half terabyte NVMe SSD. It is a Gen 4 drive, a full HD display, and that pretty much rounds things out. Of course, there are cameras on board, but let me get this thing out of the box so you can actually see what we are working with. And I've been really excited about the X12 because, quite frankly, it is, in my opinion, the best competing product to the Surface Pro. That's because it has the best keyboard, in my opinion, in a detachable, even better than, of course, the Surface Pro. But fit and finish is going to be, well, a matter of difference as I try to get this out of the box. Also, a full HD display for some is going to be maybe something that they would like to see higher resolution. This is also not an OLED, but rather an IPS display. But I think when you factor in the potential cost, this is very much a value-oriented offering. Also, I think it's going to potentially satisfy a lot of business users more than the Surface Pro because it isn't running on an ARM chip, which means the compatibility issues, well, won't be issues. But what is the trade-off with not having that Snapdragon X Elite chip? Well, it could mean that this is going to run a lot more warm. I won't say hot. It also potentially means that fans will be kicking on more often. So there are drawbacks, but until I start using it, I don't want to, well, abuse it. That just rhymed. It didn't necessarily make sense. So first things first, that ThinkPad keyboard. And this is already one of the reasons you would want to consider this device, because this is vastly superior to the keyboard you'll find really on any 2-in-1 with a detachable keyboard like this. It's got a full-blown ThinkPad experience, which if you love ThinkPads like I do, then you already know what you're getting out of this. And even though this does have Windows Hello IR facial recognition, you do have a fingerprint scanner. It also has the little loophole here for the pen. Moving right along, of course, this is backlit as well, for those of you that are wondering. The charger, I believe, is a 65 watt, but we're going to look in a second. Here is the pen, battery operated. Of course, the power cord to the wall, and then last but not least, the 65 watt power brick. Nothing new to see here. Let's get to the actual X12 detachable itself. Flip this over, and by the way, if you noticed, this is a review unit, as I mentioned. It has already been opened by Lenovo's PR team. It may have already even been reviewed by someone else. So there it is. Pretty straightforward. Again, this is a slate, as a slate should be. You do have... I wouldn't say that it has obnoxious bezels. I think they're just enough to hold, which I think is a good thing. You can see we have our speakers flanking the left and right side, our front-facing webcam, a privacy switch. At the bottom, we have our pogo ports for connecting the keyboard. On the left side of the machine, I can see we have two USB-C ports, I believe that's a power button, or is that the SIM card slot tray? This may be an LTE-enabled unit. That's another nice thing about this, something Microsoft has not launched with the Surface Pro 11 lineup yet. Microphone, headphone combo jack. Up at the top, turn this around, we have our power button, ventilation across the entire top side. And then on the right side, we have a volume rocker and what I believe is a Kensington lock, some ventilation. Now the kickstand, very much like the Surface Pro, just as functional, goes a full 170 degrees. I mean, you can almost make this totally flat, very nice. And of course, you have a rear camera as well. And that is pretty much it. Lenovo reinforcing the fact that this is a magnesium built or enclosure, the housing. Let's go ahead and power it on. And maybe we have juice, maybe we don't. Let's see. And I'll go ahead and bring the keyboard over as well, so you can see the full fit and finish on this. That easily attached. You can obviously use it this way. And let me go ahead. It does have power. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in anyway, just so that we see what kind of draw we get here. Since I do have, well, it appears this is not in service, so forget about that one. I must have disconnected it. But either way, we're booting up, and there it is. Now, in terms of battery life, my expectations, let me get the shot a little wider. I just realized we were pretty narrow. You'll have to forgive me. I am still in recovery from major surgery, not an excuse, but a reality. Basically, what we have here, again, a full HD display, an Intel Ultra 5 U-Series processor, the current 14th gen, which, if we get over 10 hours of battery life with this, it's going to be really comparable to the Surface Pro 11, because there, yes, we're seeing over 12 hours of battery life, but as I mentioned earlier, because this is not an ARM chip, we don't have to worry about Microsoft's translation layer emulating and essentially making things compatible that otherwise aren't on, an ARM chip inside of Windows 11. So this is something that will be a lot easier for me to recommend to people, because I know they won't run into compatibility issues. And that's not to say that the Surface Pro has a ton of compatibility issues. It doesn't. That's why I can recommend it. But this is just an even more bulletproof solution, so to speak. Better keyboard, but I'm not anticipating the battery life will be on par. I think it'll be very close, and that is going to be a very interesting proposition. But clearly, part of the things that had to be done in order to establish solid battery life with this Intel x86 as opposed to ARM chip is that, well, we only have a full HD display. We do not have a 2 or 3K res OLED or anything of that sort. So this is going to sip a lot less juice than, of course, those higher res OLED displays. But beyond that, I mean, really, it's just a matter of fit and finish and how you feel about that. Now, to my knowledge, these are not Thunderbolt ports. I'm going to take a look if they did put a Thunderbolt logo on this one. So I'm going to test these out. What I had read was that they are USB 4, which has the same throughput as Thunderbolt, but isn't necessarily going to work with the same accessories. So that's something I'm going to determine. But either way, it's great to finally see a true Surface Pro competitor in this brand new iteration of the X12 Detachable. And also remember, from a pricing standpoint, I'm including a link in the description, but this particular model with the 0.5 terabyte SSD and the Ultra 5 chip with 16 gigs of RAM soldered to it is not actually priced appropriately. I say that because the Ultra 7 model with the same specs is right now, I think, $1,750 on Lenovo's site, whereas the Ultra 5 build with the 256 is over $2,000. So clearly pricing, this is a brand new product just launched, needs to get resolved, but I have to imagine that this is going to be somewhere around $1,500, which is very compelling when you start to stack it up against the Surface, because you are getting the keyboard, you are getting the pen, so you're done, and you have the same sort of solution that's, roughly 2 pounds and change, a little bit heavier maybe, than 2, it is, I think. But conceptually, you're getting that same experience with a touchscreen tablet. Not as big a screen, not over 13 inches, but rather a little over 12 inches. And that's another reason I think the full HD display is actually acceptable for this screen size. Would I like higher res? Sure. Would I like it at the expense of battery life? That would sort of undo the product, because this is all about mobility. And then if you do care, as I mentioned, about having LTE on board, I'm going to eject this tray and make sure, that's a great option that the X12 offers right now in 2024, July of 2024, that we don't even have a street date yet for when Microsoft will launch LTE capable Surface Pros. But that pretty much wraps up my unboxing and first look at the X12 Detachable Gen 2. Very excited to start using this and ultimately help all of you determine, including myself, whether or not this is inferior, the same, or better than Microsoft's latest and greatest Surface Pro 11. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them at that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe and please stay safe. Later.